Hi, I'm Bob Evans. Today we're going to take you back to the good old days of mining up in Mount Sicker. I don't know if they were the good old days or not, but anyway, today we have Ron Collinson as our guest. He was born in Crofton in 1925. We again have Jack Fleetwood, who was born at Cowichan Station in 1914, and we also have Frank Holman, who was born in the Westholme area. His dad worked at Mount Sicker mines for many years. And here, Frank, here's you in what's this, 1950? 1950, and you got 3 Cougars on the front end of your truck there. Where'd you get them?
Down at Cavins Ranch, Mountain Road.
In those days, they were bounties on them, huh?
$40.
$20?
$40 a piece.
$40 a piece, huh?
Yeah.
You never done too much mining, did you? You used to like chasing those Cougars around, didn't you?
That's right, yeah.
And in those days, they used to eat up a lot of deer.
A lot of deer, a lot of sheep.
A lot of sheep, huh?
Yeah.
Well, they're still running around. And the next picture we have here about is the Westholme tree, the old tree at Westholme. This tree blew down in a windstorm in 1913, and all the copper that went to Crofton and to Ladysmith and Tacoma actually practically went past this tree. This tree was 21 feet across at the butt, and they say it was 1,400 years old.
No.
Here we have a picture of Harry Smith and Henry Croft. Harry Smith was the person that discovered Mount Sicker, the copper on Mount Sicker, in the late 1800s. What year was that, Jack?
1896 was when the first discovery was made by 2 partners, a man called Buzzard, who became later a partner of Harry Smith. But Harry Smith went up to Mount Sicker after a big fire, and that was when he discovered the rich outcrop of copper ore that became the Lenora claim, which he named after his daughter. 1898.
1898. And Henry Croft, he was the son-in-law of Dunsmuir, Robert Dunsmuir, that built the ENN, and he bought Harry Smith out for $5,000, and Henry Croft built the smelter at Crofton. Henry Croft also owned at one time, before he took over the mine, he owned the Chemina sawmill. Next, and here Harry Smith got $5,000 for his share of the mine at Mount Sicker. It was called the Lenora mine after his daughter. And he built this building in Duncan called the Duncan Emporium. That building is where Whittam's building is today. Eaton's is right on the right-hand side today. And you can see there's hardly any buildings around that building. That building is on Station Street. And he was the first one that started the paper in Duncan, which is presently now the Cowichan Leader. What was the name of the paper that he started?
1900, the Duncan Enterprise, and it ran spasmodically until 1905, when it became the Cowichan Leader, now the Cowichan News Leader.
And the next picture we have here is and here's the start of the mine. This is the opening when they first opened the mine. The fellow with his hands crossed is Dickey. He's the father of H.W. Dickey, which is still in business in Duncan today. But here there's just opening up the mouth of the mine. That would be about 1896, wouldn't it, Jack?
No, that would be 1901.
1901.
Yes.
When they opened the mine up.
Yeah.
And then, and here's the next picture. Here's the claims that were staked up in Mount Sicker. What size is a claim anyway, Jack?
A claim is 1,500 feet by 1,500 feet, comprising of 51.65 acres of land. They no longer recognize that. They want it in meters now. I have 4 claims with the old measurements.
And how long is these claims good for?
Good forever if you work them.
Oh, good forever.
You have to do so much work each year. The first year, $100 worth of work per claim, and from there on, $200 worth of work per claim.
Well, you can see in this picture here, you can see the Lenora, and then the Tyee, and Richard III. And I think those are the only 3 mines that produced any copper at Mount Sicker. Is that not true?
Yes, I believe the Key City produced a very small amount. That was Captain Wasson's claim. He was a San Francisco financier.
And the next picture, and here we have the same area. It takes this area goes right down to Crofton, and the straight line on this picture, that's the tramway. That's how they shipped the copper. The Tyee mine shipped the copper down to the E&N Railroad. It was an overhead cable system. How did that work, Jack?
That was called a riblet, and that was from the Tyee mine. They, I believe it was about 3 miles long. It came over a hill and down a mountainside to Tyee Siding, now Stratford's Crossing, and the ore was tipped into the bunkers, and from there it went into the flat cars to Ladysmith Smelter.
And on the top of the picture where you can see the black line, that's the railroad. That's the railroad that Croft put in. They had a wagon road first, and they were bringing the ore down by wagon loads, but Croft built the railroad, and you can see the railroad. It goes right down to Crofton. And the next picture shows us when they were opening up the mine, more so actually, at Lenora, and here they are. It looks like pretty hard work in those days. No air hammers, so it must have been quite a struggle, huh? Your dad worked up there, Frank, huh? I mean, he must have worked pretty hard, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, pick and shovel, the wheelbarrow. And then you put it in the hand car and push it out.
But this is starting the mine in the Lenora claim, opening up the tunnel.
That is called an adit.
An attic.
Yes. A tunnel has 2 ends, an adit has 1.
And the next picture shows us the sorting sheds. Well, how did they sort this stuff? What, 1, 2, and 3 grade, Jack?
I understand that nothing less than 4% copper was shipped out. Now that's a very high copper content today, because they use 0.5% and lower now in the big deposits. But it was all hand cobbed or hand sorted, mainly by Chinese.
And the next picture shows us, and you can see the Chinese on the left here, and they're weighing the ore. And the person in the middle with the walking cane, that's Livingston. He was the engineer that they sent out to. And this is up at the Tyee claim. This is up at the Tyee mine. And I think any of the local people will remember Sir Philip Livingston, his son, who was an air vice marshal in the Air Force during World War II. He was an eye specialist. And I can always laugh. He had us eating carrots during World War II, so we could see better in the dark. His son was trying to fool the Germans on how good the British radar was. So we're eating carrots till the cows come home. But you can see the Chinese on both sides of where they've sorted the ore. And you can see the burn-off in the back where they had the forest fire. The next pictures show us Frank can tell us a little bit about this fellow, because this is Frank's dad pushing a load out. How many years did he work up there, Frank?
Well, he started in 1901, and they shut the mine down in 1904. Then he come down and bought a little farm at Westall.
Where most of you still live.
That's right.
Yeah. But that's the shaft into the Lenora mine. And here we got, you can see the sorting sheds up on the hillside, and all the ore down in the bottom. And this is where they must have loaded it on the railroad, because you can see the railroad tracks going up to the pile of ore. And here they had a sawmill up there. This is Lloyd's sawmill. And he cut all the lumber for the mines, I would imagine. And he must have had a planer up there, because most of the buildings that you'll see later is all drop siding on it, all dressed drop siding, and they all got dressed shingles. And he moved that down to the railroad tracks later on, didn't he, Jack?
Yes, to Mount Sicker siding. And he operated that himself, or with himself and his sons, and then he sold it to a consortium of 3 local businessmen.
And here we got the power shed, the boiler there. They had steam boilers up there, did they?
Yes.
For
Oh, yeah.
all the machinery?
Yep.
Yes.
They didn't produce electricity, though, in those days, did they?
Yes, I believe so.
They must have.
Yes.
But you can see that on the right there, you can see the boiler on the right, and the machinery that, and it looks like a spool of cable. It looks like it's for the hoist, I guess. Is that what that would be for?
It looks like
That must be the hoist down the shaft.
yes, yeah, on the tipple.
Yep.
Yes.
Said it went down to sea level, that shaft.
Yes, it went below, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, how long was that shaft in the Lenora mine?
Oh, this is Tyee, went down to sea level.
The Tyee
Deeper they
down to
went,
sea
the cheaper the ore was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cheap grade.
level. Yeah. And how long was the Lenora shaft?
I don't really know. It went in on the side, like underneath it, and come up, didn't it?
Yes.
Tyee.
The Lenora had an adit, and then they put down a shaft later to recover what ore they could.
Well, the Tyee was having water problems, wasn't it?
Yes.
And they were 75 feet from one another's shaft. And if the Lenora had let the Tyee drill at 75 feet, the water would have been gravity, gone down gravity. But they weren't getting along too well up there then.
No.
And the Tyee had to pump the water out of the shaft.
That's right.
And the next picture shows us here. This is the Lenora mine, and you can see the railroad tracks. And up on the hillside, on the back above the buildings, you'll see the Tyee. The Tyee was above the Lenora, and you can see how they could have drained their shaft down through the Lenora mine and not had to pump the water out of the shaft. But you can see the whole hillside has been burnt off. Must have been a good hot fire.
Yes.
And here we got this is one of the shafts where they lower the
cage.
down. Yeah. That would be the Tyee, wouldn't it, Frank? Then.
Yep.
That would be the Tyee.
Yep.
Now here we got we had 2 hotels up there, and this is the Mount Brenton Hotel, I think. The fellow on the little kid on the left-hand side, that's Bill Brown. I think he's still living in Chemainus, and they had a school up there. They had stores up there. They had houses, but they had the two hotels, and this is the Mount Brenton Hotel. And which one is this one, Jack?
Mount Sicker.
Mount Sicker.
Mount Sicker Hotel. Mount Sicker. And this is when they, after the mines were closed and the hotel was closed. I think this hotel sold for $8. Is that not right?
Yeah. Jack Pinson bought it.
Jack Pinson bought it for
Down
$8.
on Crofton Corner.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they were selling the houses for $2 after the mine each after the mine shut down. And here's your mother, Frank, huh?
Yep.
And here's where she's telling the story about Mr. Beach trying to shoot. Well, he had a love craze on Mrs. Campbell, but he shot what was it? Badu?
Bebo,
Bebo.
yes. Joe Bebo was it?
I think that's his name, yeah. Right.
And him and his brother ran the hotel.
Yes.
Yeah. And what happened there anyway, Jack?
Apparently, Mrs. Campbell's love for Fred Beach cooled off, and he took a dim view of it, and during a drinking spree, he decided that he would do her in. So he was shooting the gun around and making a nuisance of himself, and apparently Joe Bebo, a good friend of his, came out and tried to intercede with him, and instead Beach shot Bebo.
Well, Mr. Campbell was Beach's partner, wasn't he, in one of the mines, and he passed away, and that's when the trouble started.
She was a widow, yes.
Yeah, and that's when the trouble started.
That's right.
I think when he did come back to the hotel, I think she was at the window, and he took a shot at her, and it hit her, just clipped her hair, and she fainted, and he thought he'd shot her.
Yes.
And then he turned the gun on himself and shot himself.
That's right.
And the next picture we have here is the housing, and you see all these the housing. It's all got that drop siding on it, so they must have had a planer up there to make that drop siding. They made a lot of of that drop siding in those days, didn't they?
Indeed, yes. Our house is built of it. That was 1906.
These houses sold for $2 after the mines closed down. If you go up there now, you'll have a problem finding anything. Isn't that right, Frank?
Pretty hard, yeah.
Yeah. Pretty hard to find anything.
Yeah.
And here we have the miners. This is a group of the miners. See the building in the back? It's all drop siding. And if you look at the shingles, it's all manufactured shingles. And is your dad in that picture, Frank?
No, I think it's Bill Holman.
Yeah, Bill
brother.
Holman's in that one. Huh?
Brother.
That's your dad's brother.
Yeah.
That must be the cookhouse because it looks like the cook sitting in the
Yeah,
in the
with
front
an
there.
apron on there.
Yeah, with the apron on. So that must have been the cookhouse. And the next one shows more of the miners in front of, I guess, the bunkhouses. Your dad's
Yeah, there's
in that picture. He's in the white shirt, kneeling on the right-hand side.
Yeah, on the right-hand side, the white Stanfield's on.
That's right, white Stanfields.
Yeah.
That's right.
Very probably Angelo Branca's father is in that picture. He was the blacksmith up there, and of course Angelo Branca was born on Mount Sicker, and he was one of the leading outstanding attorneys in Canada.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Lawyers.
that's right.
Yes.
And the next group we have here is some more miners. There was what was there, 14 to 1,800 people up there at one time, Jack?
Supposedly between 17 and 1,800 people at the peak of activities on Mount Sicker.
And that they started mining 1896? And
No.
it's 18.
No, 1901
19,
to 1908.
1908.
Yes. On this phase, 1942 to 1947 on the last phase.
And looking at, actually, when I was looking at the pictures, there's no two people the same other than Frank's dad there. They're all look, so there was quite a large contingent up there.
Well, they mine right around the clock.
Yeah, 24 hours a day.
Three shifts.
Three shifts, yeah.
Yeah.
What was it, 6 million tons of, $6 million worth of ore come out of there?
Well, actually, the $6.5 million worth of ore that came out of there was the force that propelled the sleepy little agricultural town of Duncan Station into the 20th century and prosperity.
Yeah. And the next picture we have here, here's building the road. This is building the Mount Sicker Road. You don't see any diggers or front-end loaders there, and it looks like all pick and shovel work.
Pick and shovel and PVs look like.
Yeah. It looks like all pick and shovel work. And they had two roads. They had two roads up there, one on the Mount Prevost side and one on the Mount Sicker side. And here's the bar in one of the hotels, Mount Sicker Hotel, I think it is. And you see the spittoons at the bottom of the bar. So there was lots of customers, I would imagine.
It's one of the Bebos, isn't it?
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were saying, Jack?
That's one of the Bebo brothers on the right.
Oh, that's one of the Bebo brothers.
Yes. I think the other one is at the other end on the left,
At the bar.
behind the bar. Yeah.
He has all V-joint lumber inside.
Yes.
The joint lumber inside.
Yeah.
That's right. So they must have had a plant pretty close by.
Must.
Yeah.
And the next picture shows us. This is the cable system that they brought the ore down. See the fellow in the middle? He's half in one of the buckets, and his other leg is out. And those are the buckets that they put the ore in. And it come down by cable to the E&N, and then it was dumped into the gondola cars. And how did that work, Jack? How did that work?
Called that
gravity.
They called that the riblet system. Mr. Riblet had built one in Nelson, and this was the second, and I believe the only other one that he ever built. He was an American, and it was his patent. It was more or less of a gravity system. The full buckets pulled the empties back over the 3 miles of cable that came from the mine to Tyee siding, where they loaded the ore into the cars for Ladysmith Smelter.
Well, I understand that if you get out on the old Victoria Road there at the bottom of Solly's Hill, you can look up and see the maple trees in the fall, where the maple trees have taken over there, according to one of the people there. You can look up and see where that cable system come down.
I remember very well the trellises that were on there still on the mountainside. You must remember that too.
That's right. Yeah, they were built quite strong.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was no horsepower or steam power to get that stuff down. After it was a pretty inexpensive system.
There was a steam pot to boost it over the first hill.
To get it going.
To get it going.
And here's the railroad, the start of the railroad of Lenora Mine.
Number 3.
They were first bringing the ore down by wagons, weren't they, Jack?
Yes.
And
yes,
it was quite a tedious affair, and they couldn't
To
bring it down
Westholme.
fast enough. Pardon?
to Westholme.
To Westholme, that's
Yes.
right. They brought it down to the and Croft. When Croft took over from Henry Smith, that's Harry Smith. He built the railroad. He put in the railroad to get the ore to Stratford Crossing. And at that time, they shipped it to Ladysmith, and then it was shipped to Tacoma for smeltering. That's before they had the smelter at Crofton. Now here we have Haggerty Hill and Nugget Creek Bridge. At the bottom there you can see how sharp the bridge was. And that's Haggerty Hill, and that was the steep section of the railroad, and they had to sand the tracks, didn't they, to stop the runaways?
That's right, yeah.
They had somebody go ahead or twice a day and sand the tracks so they could, the brakes would bite and the wheels would bite into the rails. And the next picture here we have, again, the railroad. This is number 3, Shay. These were little Shay locomotives. And here it is, they're dumping ore. This is number 3. And they're dumping ore in at Crofton. Is that not right, Jack? That's at Crofton?
That's right, yes.
That's the Crofton dump.
Yes, that's the dump at Crofton for the smelter.
At the smelter, yeah.
Yes, at the
That's right.
smelter site.
And here we're going around Nugget Creek. You can see how sharp that was and how big the locomotive was. I think your uncle's on the front there as the brakeman, Frank, huh?
Yeah. Ike Holman, yeah.
Beg pardon?
Ike Holman.
Yeah. And this is going around Nugget Creek down Haggerty Hill. It was quite exciting, I understand, coming up there. You look straight down for many, many hundreds of feet.
Right down the Chemainus River.
Right down into the Chemainus River.
Yeah.
Yeah. They finally, they made some cars for people to ride in. Otherwise, you had to ride on the top of the ore. And here we have the Shay again. This is down the flat. And I wonder how many tons of ore they brought down in each load on them, because that locomotive's not that big.
I don't know. What did they pack?
Would they have 20 tons?
They had 2 cars like
2 cars, yes.
Yeah.
2 cars per trip, wasn't it?
Yep.
2 cars
Yes.
per trip, yeah.
That's all they could handle with the braking power that
Get
they
a
had.
runway, yeah.
But as I said before, they had 3 locomotives, so they must have. And the next picture shows us. This is at the. This is at the mine. This is loading the ore from the bunkers onto the mine.
Yeah.
From the mine onto the cars, and that's your dad on the right-hand side there, Frank. Is
Yeah,
that right?
standing on the right there.
That's standing on the right, yeah.
That would be all hand-cobbed ore, hand-sorted ore.
They're all Chinese, see that?
Yeah. $1 per day.
$1 per day for a Chinese.
That's right.
Yeah, what was the going wages up there at that time? About $2.50 a day?
$2.50 to $4, I think it was.
$2.50 to $4.
Yes.
My dad got $3.50
Your
when he worked in the mine.
$3.50.
Oh.
And here we got the next picture shows us before they built the railroad from Stratford's Crossing to Crofton. Here we're dumping the ore into the ENN railroad cars, the gondolas, to take it to Ladysmith and then ship it to Tacoma, to the smelter. This ore was so good, I understand, that the Tacoma smelter paid them before they got the ore. That's how high quality the ore was at the time.
Yes, and so good that they had to use flux of a type, probably silica, to smelt it. So it must have been very rich ore.
And here we have the section that of railroad that goes from Stratford Crossing to Crofton. And why they went this way, I don't know. You see the switchbacks? See this? There's 3 switchbacks there, and they went on the side of Mount Richards. And I can't understand why they didn't go through the Indian Reserve and through the flatland. Why do you think that they went this way? It must have been expensive to put it on the side of that mountain.
Well, the reason that I had heard was that they didn't want to have a lengthy litigation with several of the owners of the land. And also, they could have put it through the Indian Reserve, but the Indians did not want it, or the Indian Department, I should say, did not want it, apparently. And if they had conceded, it would have been a very lengthy litigation.
Well, this must have cost them a lot of money to put it on that the side of Richards, on the north side of Richards Mountains.
Yeah.
And the next picture here, which shows us the railroad locomotive again. And the bottom, low-key, was the one that they had at the smelter to push the cars around. And looks like they got a cow catcher on that one. But that's quite a little machine on the bottom. But most of those Lokies, after they shut down the mine, went to logging, isn't that all right? Logging camps, I think, bought them up for...
I believe one went to a mine on the west coast of the island, up
yeah.
Rupert Inlet. Now, which one, I don't know. But I think you're right there. I think the others did go to logging shows. If I remember rightly, reading that one had gone to Rock Bay, in the northern part of Vancouver Island on the east coast.
And here we get to your country on here in Crofton. And here's the early, what's this, about 1904 or 5? We have the Crofton Hotel on the left-hand side, and the, what was the other hotel called?
Osborne Bay Hotel.
Osborne Bay Hotel.
Yeah.
You were saying that picture don't look right to you.
Well, it's down below the beach end, looking up the street.
That's right. It's looking
Yeah.
it's looking west. Yeah. But the Crofton Hotel is still there, and but they tore the other hotel down. But what time did they tear that hotel down?
I would think it would be in the early 30s. Used to play cops and robbers in there with rubber bands, so I was probably 6 or 7, 8 years old then.
I remember it quite well in 1926. When we were kids, it was gutted inside. Isn't that right, Ron? And it was sort of a ruin then.
Well, it shows Art Howe's butcher shop there on the left-hand side, and old Art Howe, he supplied the meat to all the logging camps and the mills, and his son is still in is up at Lake Couch, and I think he's in his 80s now. Art Howe Jr.
Yeah.
But old Art Howe, he had a horse and buggy cart that he used to peddle the meat with, and his butcher shop is on the left-hand side, just above the present Crofton Hotel. That hotel, the Crofton Hotel, has changed hands many times, hasn't it?
Yes. I don't know if there's any of the original building left there or not now.
Yeah.
I remember when Olette's had it. They had it when we stayed at Crofton during a summer, 1926. And then later on, Ron, didn't Goya's take it over?
Yeah, Olette's had it in the 30s too, I believe.
Up into the 30s,
Yes,
yes.
I can remember
Yeah,
being around there when they had it.
yeah.
I learned some new English out in front of that hotel.
And here we have, here we're looking east at Crofton, and you can see the two hotels in the left portion of the picture. And then if you look over next to the trees on the right-hand side, you can see the smelter, and that's looking down from the main road of Crofton. What's that?
York.
York Street. Yeah, that's looking down, and that's I think that's 1907. I think that picture was taken in 1907. You were saying, and here we got here's a picture of the smelter at Crofton, and whereabouts was that located at?
Right on the waterfront.
On the right-hand side.
Yeah, where, what is it, a motel there, or?
There's a recreation vehicle park there now.
There's recreational. And the slag, you were saying that there was still some slag left there. Huh?
Yes.
And Jack, that smelter worked from what, 1900?
That and Ladysmith smelter blew in at the same time, December 1902. And that was, the Crofton smelter was not built by Henry Croft. It was built by two Americans called Bellinger and Breen. They built it and called it Northwest Smelting Company, and later Henry Croft took it over from them.
Well, that I wonder how much ore went through there actually in the end.
That is hard to say, really.
Because what did it operate? How many years did it operate?
1902 to 1908. I think, as a matter of fact, I believe some Britannia ore was put through in 1909, and that was the very last of the smelter. Britannia acquired the smelter when it was just about bankrupt to process the ore from the Britannia mine on Howe Sound.
Well, the slag pile was there for years and years and years, wasn't it?
We used to play on that and get splinters in our feet.
Awful stuff.
Yes.
And George Whitaker got control of it and shipped most of it to Bamberton and Tacoma.
No.
Some of it went to
No,
Bamberton.
a great number of it was used for sandblasting material
Oh, yeah.
to sandblast buildings and such like.
And I think a lot of it used for shingles too.
Shingles, that's
Yes.
right. An aggregate for shingles.
Yes.
A duroid type of shingle.
I kind of think the Island Tug and Barge had it then, and they were the ones that were hauling
George
it.
Whitaker contracted.
Yeah,
Yes.
loading.
Yeah, because my son ran a cat there.
Well, there's still some there, is it, Ron?
Oh yeah, it was pushed out on the beach there and dirt put over it, but it's still spreading all over now.
Still spreading.
Yeah.
And the next picture here, we show the no, we're back still at the at Crofton smelter. Here we have the front view from the town side. It was quite a big building.
It was indeed. Quite a number of buildings, in fact.
And the ore went out by, they had a dock there also. They shipped the ore out by boat, didn't they?
I think they shipped it out as blister copper in pigs or ingots, probably weighing about half a ton each. I do remember seeing one of those still on the beach, a defective one, and questioned Mr. Excel, who had worked in the smelter, and I'm fairly sure he told me that they exported it as blister copper.
Well, there's still a lot of copper up on Mount Secker, isn't there?
Indeed there is, and I'm hoping that it turns out all right. I'm a generous shareholder still in the company that has all the Mount Sicker holdings now, Laramide Resources. And they are, or have been very recently, drilling up there. They've determined 2 million tons of copper ore still in the Mount Sicker area, and if copper went up a little more, I'm quite sure that they would be mining up there.
Well, you have a mine out at yourself. You have a mine out at Caution Station, do you not?
Yes, I have, and if copper went up to $1.50 American, I would be mining 2 small deposits on my mineral claims.
Well, copper in this area actually is in pockets, isn't it?
It is indeed.
It's in pockets.
They say that the Mount Sicker area that they did mine was a large cigar-shaped pocket, and that particular pocket was mined out. But there are other pockets of ore, and of course, now they can mine to 0.5% copper, and quite profitably, which they couldn't begin to in the days of the Mount Sicker, Lenora, Tyee, Richard III.
And here we have the smelter at Crofton again. This is from the water side, looking at the water side, and the next picture is where the Tyee ore went. This is at Ladysmith. The Tyee ore went to Ladysmith, and this is the smelter at Ladysmith. And that was right on the beach. Whereabouts? What do they call that beach at Ladysmith, Jack?
It's beyond Transfer Beach. It's you go in right opposite where the 49th parallel monument is. You turn to the right, and there's a sort of a peninsula there that they use as a log dump, and that is where the buildings stood. They were painted gray. I remember them well, and the last owners of them lived in the old country, as the Tyee company was financed from the old country. It was Ladysmith Tidewater Copper Company.
Well, actually, if they'd got together and had one smelter, they would have been much more profitable.
Oh,
I would say,
indeed,
wouldn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And I mean, there was one fight between the Lenora and Tyee continuously, as far as I could see.
Yes.
And then when Henry Croft tried to cross the E&N, he had a big fight with his brother-in-law. Isn't that right?
That's right.
To get the right of way to go over top of the E&N.
A fight, an expensive fight, too.
Expensive fight.
Yes. He was a tenacious Australian. And he represented the district as an MPP at one time. Few people remember that or have read of that.
Well, there we have this little program about the good old days of mining. I don't think the mining days were that good, because I think it was bloody hard work in the way they were doing it then. And we hope that you enjoy our little program. Thank you for watching. Hi. I'm Bob Evans, and today we're going to try and take you back to the days gone by in the Duncan area, what they used to call the good old days. Today we have with us Fred Price, who was born in the old Sahalem Hotel in 1902. We have Bill Kenyon. Bill worked at the old Genoa Bay sawmills that is long gone. And we have Melba Shepherd. Melba worked in the Cowichan Merchants, and then, which is today Eaton's. And last but not least, we have Jack Fleetwood, who is the unofficial mayor of Cowichan Station. These pictures you're going to see are from scrapbooks of days gone by from Mrs. Ina Talbot, and scrapbooks that I've put together over the years. The first picture we have here is Fred Price, who is sitting on the end of the table here when he was a little boy in the Sahalem Hotel. How old were you then, Fred?
I guess I must have been about 5, which would be somewhere around 1907, I guess, that picture.
That's your dad and your mother on the stairs,
my
huh?
mother and the other animals on the wall were not humans.
Well, they say that there was lots of them around in those days.
Yes. There doesn't show too well, but there's a heron up there
Oh, yeah.
in the corner, and on the extreme right here is a black bear skin hanging there. People in those days seemed to be very keen to put up their trophies and exhibit them. I guess it made money for the taxidermist. My mother was very keen about the plants.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, it was all very easy, too, because we had Chinese help in the hotel, and I guess the watering was done by them. However, that's beside the point. That was from the main lobby up to the bedrooms upstairs. There were 20 rooms in the house, bedrooms. Actually, only 19 because there was not a number 13.
And well, the Sahalem was built 1901, 1902.
Yes, yeah. I think it was started in 1901 and was opened in 2.
And here we have, looking down the railroad tracks, you can see the maple tree on the right-hand side. That is just been cut down. That's where the city parking lot is. And the building on the left is the old agricultural hall. They must have moved that because that building's in the wrong place. It was moved over to the railroad tracks and later turned into an armories because they kept the horses in the basement. And the building in front is the old Alderley tea rooms. And as we look up the railroad tracks, we'll see how much growth there's been in the last number of years. There is the Sahalem Hotel.
It's the original.
That's the original hotel, and there's
James's.
James's, yeah. That was later the coach lines. And then we're looking up Station Street. And that's the old doctor's office, Beaver Potts and McAfee's doctor's office. And that's Kenneth Street we're looking up there. And that's the town side. That's 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Street that we're looking at now. Mainly in the old days, the Chinese and Japanese lived in that area. Now here is the old Quamachan Hotel. Your dad, Fred, your dad was involved in the Quamachan Hotel
Yes,
also.
he built that. And
Your dad built that.
he and Percy Janes, who was a brother of W.P. Janes. And that was in '86 when the railway came through.
And then it burnt down.
Right.
Burnt down and was rebuilt and called the Commercial Hotel. And then we go to Genoa Bay Sawmills. Well, here we are. Here's the old Quamachin burning down, and there is the commercial at the bottom. And now they're building a new one.
New one.
Can't understand why they're building it out of wood again. Now here we go to Genoa Bay Sawmills. This is where you come in, Bill.
Yes,
I understand you used to have to walk around the mountain to go to work.
Yes, if we came into Duncan, well, we get a taxi from the Duncan garage, which is a Model T Touring, and go to the Stone Church. That cost us $2, and then we'd hike the trail from the Stone Church into the mill. If you wanted to go right into Genoa Bay, it cost you $5. And $5 in those days was a lot of money. You're only getting 35 cents an hour working in the sawmill. And we had, about 40 to 50 young fellows, all around 20, working in the sawmill. And in the early 20s, there was more lumber shipped out of Genoa Bay and all the rest of the ports in BC, because they used to scour the lumber up from Victoria, Chemainus, Fraser Mills. And I think one reason was because when the boat came there, it didn't have to pay harbor dues. So that made quite a difference.
Still sail in those days, was there not?
Before, in the early 20s, there was lots of sailing ships. Of course, they had to be towed from the Race Rocks in, and the towing would cost quite a bit of money if they towed to Victoria and then Vancouver and then every place. But they tow them into Genoa Bay, of course, where there's no harbor dues, and then they'd bring the lumber there. And then when I was there in 23, 24, we used to ship an awful lot of lumber to the east coast of the United States. And the American ships come in, they're all named after planets. And I've seen them go out there, the captain could step off his bridge right onto the timber. It just looked like big boxes going out.
Well, walking around that mountain in the middle of winter, it wasn't to be very nice, I would imagine.
No, I remember one time there was about 15 of us there, one flashlight, and everybody hanging on to one another's coattails to make sure we all got there. And we made it. But lots of, as I say, in the old days, I guess we had lots of fun.
And here we have Cowichan Station in the old days. I think this is about 1907. Is that not right, Jack?
Let me see, the Daniels. No.
That's the hotel there.
That's the Fermento building, and the nearest, the lean-to on the side of the Central Hotel was the post office. In the Fermento building was the Central Hotel and bar, and a grocery store, and of course living quarters. No, that would be taken about 1912, because there's the Daniels building to the right, and that wasn't built till 1912. But Cowichan Station was a metropolis of industry in those days. I was born there, 1914, so I can remember a lot of the exciting things that took place there. I went to school at Cowichan Station. That's
Well, here we come to back to Duncan, the city section. We're looking up Station Street and 1895 and the view in 1967. So it's changed a lot, and it's changed a lot again too. Now we have grass where the cars are.
Right.
Yes.
It's all grass where the cars are.
Well, that was James's store in the corner there on the left,
On the top picture.
the top picture.
Then it was the coach lines. After that, it was the coach lines for many years. I peddled papers out of there at 10 o'clock at night.
That was built 1887, And in 1907, there was a bank in the top there. Before, while they were building the Bank of British North America. A.W. Hannum was the first bank manager. 1917, the Bank of Montreal bought out the Bank of British North America.
This is a picture of my grandfather and my grandmother, and he come here in the mining days. He was a barber, and my mother's in the back of that buggy, and old grandfather Rutledge, he was the first fire chief in the city of Duncan, and I can always remember he always went for a ride on Sunday, whether he had a horse or a car. Always took you for a ride on Sunday, and that's taken in front of the Commercial Hotel.
Cut my hair for 10 cents.
Cut your hair for 10 cents. And if you weren't a CCFer, you'd pull it too. And now here we got the Couch and Creamery, the early building of the Couch and Creamery, which is actually right across the street from the studio before it burnt down. Well, the third time it burnt down, I guess. And that it's in the early day. People used to take their milk there and sell it to them so they'd make butter. And here it is after it was remodeled. They had a grocery store in the picture on the building on the right, and they sold eggs and canned eggs and shipped them, and it was a co-op. And I think it's burnt down twice. The last time it was completely destroyed,
Yeah.
and they never rebuilt it. And that's where the Capri Theater is right now, right across the street from the studio.
Mm.
And here it is. That's that wasn't the last time it burned down. They rebuilt it after that one. I'm pretty sure they rebuilt it after that one. They saved the office, all the books and the accounts receivable and the accounts payable, I understand. And here's the Cowichan District Hospital. I think Melba could tell us a little about that.
King's Daughters Hospital.
King's Daughters Hospital, that's right.
Right. Wasn't Cowichan District Hospital until they built a new one
That's
in
right.
1967.
That one was built in 1911.
You can't prove that by me, Jack.
That
I
was-
wasn't here. I came along after that.
But that is where the extended care is now, at the top of the hill. It's still called the Hospital Hill. And that property that is on was donated to the community for a hospital by the McKinnon family. And when they tore the old hospital down, and they were going to sell it, and they found out that they couldn't sell the land because they didn't own it. As long as there was a hospital on it, it was all right. But if they didn't have a hospital on it, it reverted to the McKinnon family because it was their property. And that's when it was added on to. That was when it was added on to. That's before it was still King's Daughters Hospital in those days, and that was before it was moved up to Gibbons Road.
4954.
And here's a sawmill that a lot of people don't even realize it existed on Salmone's Lake. I think Jack, you can, and Fred can tell us something about this.
Island
Before
Lumber
my time.
Company. Island Lumber Company?
Yeah.
Yeah. That terminated 1916. But the forerunner of the Island Lumber Company was Angus McKinnon's Quamachan sawmill that he had bought from the Reverend David Holmes, and that was situated on Mary Street. And in 1907, he became a partner with, I think the Van Normans were in that also, the Island Lumber Company. And the Quamachan Lumber Company was enlarged into the Island Lumber Company.
Well, that sawmill is right where Boatland is now. If you go up the highway, and it's Boatland's on the right, that's where that sawmill was located at.
Yeah, on that creek that goes down
That's
there.
Sawmills Creek, yeah. Holmes's Creek, I should say. Because we used to fish in the mill pond after the mill was gone.
First time I saw the mill pond was in August 1930 from an aeroplane, and I didn't know what it was, so I inquired, and Charlie Stock told me, "Oh, that's the old Island Lumber Company mill pond."
Didn't Stone work there?
Stone worked there, yes.
I see he was a blacksmith or something.
Now here we have the old agricultural hall. A lot of good times was had in that building.
My goodness,
Okay.
yes.
Dances, we played basketball, and it was an armories in both world wars. And every year the firemen's had their firemen's ball, and they used to just pack the place. And there's a lot of good times had in that building.
Pat Carr Hilton Lange used to have her dancing recitals in there.
New Year's dances, there were 1,000 people there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I
I
often thought of that when, you know, you had coal oil lamps in those days too.
That's right.
And the stoves up there, supper room. Never had any fires that I remember.
Yeah, we had there used to be $1
Dollar.
for the dance,
right.
and you got a sit-down supper.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sit-down supper. And here is the Castley family. These scrapbooks is one of the ladies in this picture. This is the Castleys in the early days with all their daughters. Mr. Castley was a carpenter, and he was killed putting up the fire pole across from the present City Hall. They were putting up a fire pole, and the fire pole fell on him, and he was injured on the 23rd of December, and he was taken to Victoria, and he died on Christmas Day, and left Mrs. Castley with all those girls and nothing. And she is the first telephone operator. She sewed and took in washing, and she was the first Duncan telephone operator.
I remember the Castley home.
Yeah, right on the corner.
Yeah, Ingram and Craig.
Craig,
Right.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll have that later. Now here's Chinatown. Oh, good old Chinatown. A lot of fun was had in good old
I should
Chinatown.
say.
The first building on the right there, next to the courthouse, as you see the right-hand corner is the present courthouse, was the Pekin Cafe. And we used to have a lot of fun in that old place with old Cupcake, the cook. Yeah, old Cupcake, he used to get excited if you had a little drink in your little booth that he used to give you.
That was owned by Sulam Bing.
That's right, yeah. And Sulam Bing, he was the sort of the Chinese boss of most of the sawmills around. That right, Bill?
Yep. Especially Hillcrest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember Sulam Bing. He used to use our horse to plow his vegetable garden. And in those days, there was never any money change stamps. But at Christmas time, my dad got a bottle of scotch, and my mother got a five-pound box of chocolates.
Chinatown was fairly spacious for a small community.
Oh, yeah.
It's where the old age pensioners places now.
The Dark Coon Club, Chinese Nationalist Society, and
Here we're looking up Ingram Street. The building on the left-hand side is the original City Hall. It was a house. That's the building now that they're putting another story on Ingram Street. It's next to the old fire hall. And that's what it looked like in those days.
Yeah.
And here's I think Fred Price can tell us more about this picture. He's the man on the left-hand side, standing against the window.
Well, that was me, as you say. Next to me is Mrs. Haddon Smith,
Oh,
and next to her is Bob Whittam, and then can't quite see that one. I
Mr.
think-
Hoy's there somewhere.
Hmm?
Mr. Hoy's there somewhere, isn't
Yeah, Hoy's coming next.
Ferguson Hoey?
Yep. And then I got a better picture of that at home. Miss,
The lady.
a little lady there, right in front of J.H. Whittam. He was then had a bandage on his leg, so he insisted that she stand in front of him.
Well, that building
And,
was
on the extreme right is Mr. Norrie, F.J. Norrie.
Oh, John Norrie.
that building was on Station Street, right where Martin's Menswear is at the present moment.
Later on, I got into business with John Spear, and our office was the 2, 1, 2, and 3, the first 3 windows from the left. Bernard White had the other 2 over there with all his surveying stuff. I think we only paid about $5 a month because it was pretty shaky. As I said, the toilet was downstairs at the back, and everybody would leave the door open. In the wintertime, it would freeze tight as a drum.
No central heat.
No, we had not a coal stove, but a oil stove up in our place there. And there was a furnace for the downstairs, but it didn't go upstairs. It did keep the Whittam office. Bob Whittam's office was on the left downstairs, and J.H. was in the end here.
I used to like Mr. Hoy. I used to caddy for him. And he always used to pay 50 cents a round. Otherwise, everybody else only paid 2 bits a round.
Oh, I can tell you who that was.
And here we're
Claude
looking.
Dowman worked in there too.
Here we're looking up
Oh, yeah.
towards the railroad tracks and on Station Street. Some of those buildings that are still there. The one, the third one up is still there. The fourth one up is the old KFP Hall that burnt down in the 30s. And the first 2 buildings were Japanese buildings. The Japanese, one had a grocery store and the other had a shoe store in there. And that's in the 30s, mind you. That picture is earlier than that.
Was that Togo?
I can't
The
remember.
Japanese,
I can't remember
Togo?
his name.
Oh.
Kitagawa.
Kitagawa was the man with the taxi.
Yeah.
Then there was Low Key and Waikiki.
Across the street.
Yes.
Now here's a Jenny in 1919 that landed in Evans's Field. Evans's Field was used for many purposes in the old days. You see the maple tree on the right-hand side. Well, that's where the community center is today. And there's the barns, the 2 barns, one for cows and one for horses. And Evans Field, they played everything there. Baseball, soccer, polo, horse. We even had a horse racing track there, half-mile horse racing track. That was lots of fun in those days, wasn't it, Melba?
Yes, it
When
was.
the horses
Yes.
come to town. Yeah. They had parimutuel betting and everything like that.
Some of the horses stayed right there, didn't
Yeah,
they?
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, later in the later years, they had horse barns on where the pool hall is.
Yeah.
And they used to have accidents in those days too, way back. And that's where the E&N hit this vehicle, and both parties were killed.
Oh, where was that?
That
the,
was
the crossing?
Right
Yeah.
up here,
up here at Mary Street.
Mary Street.
About that that crossing is there.
Yeah, I can't see what date that is.
Captain somebody.
That's right. That's
Can't
right.
remember what his
Yep.
name was.
That's right.
Mary Street or Sherman Road?
Says
Sherman Road.
Sherman Road.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I could see the name of Mr. Murphy there.
Here we're looking back up Station Street. This is after the 20s because the cenotaph was put there in about the
Cenotaph,
20s.
Yeah.
And the first building next to the bank is Miss Barron's building. She had a, what would you call it?
Millinery.
Millinery?
Yes. She made all your pretty hats.
No, that was Mrs. Townsend.
Oh, all right.
But I can always remember if Kyle's Taxi weren't there at the right time on Sunday morning to take her to church, they were in trouble.
That's Bank of Montreal on the corner.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's looking west.
That
looking-
must have been
Looking
taken
west.
before 1947 because that was the year they moved the
Cenotaph.
cenotaph.
And here's Duncan Garage in the early
Garage,
days. That's when they built bodies on the cars. Didn't come with bodies. Old Chris Dobson, he was the bodybuilder in those days.
What did they come with? Just the wheels?
Just the
There's the
chassis and
chassis
the,
and the wheel.
Engine that there.
Oh, I see. The engine, and they put the body on it. Okay.
Now that must have been taken after 1912 or after because that was the date that Bob McClay built that building. Oh,
There's the Evans house.
yeah, that's the Evans house. That my grandmother brought up 7 kids in that house. And how she done it, I don't know. It even had a dirt floor. And that's over on First Street, where the church is. Or it's not a church anymore, it's an upholstery shop now, on First Street. And how she brought up 7 kids in that log cabin, I don't know. And it had a dirt floor.
David Evans built it in 1864
Yeah.
when he took the land up there. Same year as Duncan took the land up.
Now here's the Indians. A lot of people don't know what a weir looks like today. And this is our local Indians with their weir. Here they're getting fish. See their canoes. And this weir is just below the White Bridge, which is going out to Glenora.
Allenby Road now, isn't it?
Yes.
And here's the telephone operators in the 30s, 1931. And if you wanted something, all you had to do was pick up the receiver and ask the telephone operator. She'd get it for you.
Yeah.
Fire department, ambulance, a policeman, they knew where everybody was at. There's Milt Kinch on the far, at the back on the far right. He just passed away
Just
here
died.
last year, and he was 100 years old.
Yeah.
Here we cry about the roads of today, and this is the roads going over the Malahat in the 20s, teens or 20s, I guess. And that's the top of the Malahat, where you used to have to go over around the lookout. And they say that today our roads are not good enough.
Well, you didn't go quite as fast.
That's right. Yeah. And here we're looking down Craig Street, and there's the old Dan Hattie's building with the arrow. And that building is built very, very early.
1893.
93, yeah.
Yes.
Chris Dobson built that.
For his wheelwright business.
Mm-hmm.
He came here to Duncan, or District, 1886. First the Dobsons.
And the one on the right is just about what it looks like today.
Yeah.
And here again we're looking up Station Street,
Station
and that's that building there is the old Emporium on the left, and that's where Whittam's building is now. Just on the other side of that building, on the left, is where Eaton's is today, and that's 1901.
Where that barn is?
That's no, that's the Bank of Montreal, Bank of Commerce, where the
Oh,
barn
all
is.
right.
Eaton's would be on the corner. And that's the old, actually the Duncan family's barn. Keating, a fellow by the name of Keating, had a livery stable in there before the Bank of Commerce
Yeah,
was
then
built on that corner.
Keys.
Hubert
Keats.
Keats.
That's
Yeah,
right, Keats.
Hubert Keast.
Yeah.
Yep.
That building must have been built 1899 by Harry Smith after he sold the Lenora claim.
And here we are in 1916 when they had the big snow. This is looking towards the railroad tracks down Station Street. I think they had six feet of snow.
It was over the top of the fence posts.
8 feet at Glenora, according to the old papers.
So I guess there wasn't too much movement in those days. And here is the cenotaph being dedicated. And that's
21.
I guess it'd be 21, yeah. A lot of people come to town for that. See all the old cars in front of Duncan Garage's old building across the railroad tracks?
Huh.
And here we're looking from the Alderley north. In Duncan, that's 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Street over there. On the left, you can see the church on 2nd Street. Steeple of the church on 2nd Street.
That's the Presbyterian church,
Yeah.
built
My-
1907.
Yeah, my dad tore that old barn down for the lumber.
Oh.
And here's Trunk Road in the early days. This is at the top of the hill, looking down towards the highway. The golf course was on the right-hand side, and the
Too big.
houses were on the left. I think it was a wooden sidewalk down there in those days.
Yep. Big maple trees on either side.
Yeah.
Right on.
And there it is today. That's just from the same view of today.
Quite a contrast.
And this is Mrs. Castley in one of the early days of her telephone operation in her house. And here's building the Malahad in the early days. This is the way they built it. Horse and buggies. Wonder how many miles a month they made.
Took them 3 years, actually, to build it.
Fresh little scrapers.
And here we are again looking up Craig Street. And you'll see on the right-hand side the old Island Drug Building, which is now John's Menswear. And the City Hall, or the old post office, is not in that picture. And that's the same view at the bottom. And here we are, Melba. Here's the Couch and Merchants and
Merchants,
Eaton's.
The old days and the new days.
The old days and the new days.
Used to be
I can
the-
remember when they had that vacuum system. You used to put the money in the can and
That,
it
that,
used to go up to the office.
that was taken out when I went there. They had proper cash registers in when I went. And Mr. Aldersey was the one that was in charge of reading the cash registers.
And he was very efficient.
He was. He'd go around with his, well, I still think it was his Boy Scout belt on with the keys all hanging on the ring, around to read all the cash registers.
I think you made a slip out for every sale in those days, didn't you?
Yes, that's true. You did. Everyone got a bill.
Everybody got a bill.
And Saturday night was a meeting place for the whole district.
That's
there.
right. Everybody
Couch
came to
and
town
Merchants.
on Saturday night because the stores all stayed open, I think, till 9:30 in those days.
That's right.
Mhm.
And here's on Station Street again. Here's Grassy's blacksmith shop.
That's where my father worked.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's right.
Huh.
And the picture underneath it is when it was the theater. There's still a horseshoe in the
That's
in the
what-
sidewalk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember your dad, Melba, when he used to shoe horses and whatnot. He'd get a wild one in there. Oh, I'll tell you, he used to scare me. You got a wild horse in there. And here's Hillcrest Lumber Company. This is at Satlam. This is before they moved to Massachi Lake. That's Mr. Stone and the Stone Boys. And a lot of people went through that mill. I think, what did they pay in those days? 12, 15 cents an hour?
Oh, after the 30s there, well, that was the highest price was about 35 cents for the sawyer.
35 cents for the sawyer.
And locomotive engineer, 35 cents.
Yeah. I think they had a price range for everybody. One for the East Indians, one for the Chinese, and one for the Japanese, and one for the single white men, and one for the married white men. But in those days, I would imagine the price of lumber, you could buy a whole truckload of lumber for $10.
I went back to Mayo.
And they were all just struggling.
I went back to Mayo in 1930. I got $50 a month, and I paid $1 a day board. So it didn't leave you much.
No.
And then the government took income tax off it, too.
In 1933, my dad bought 3,000 feet of good shiplap from Mayo, $9, and $6 for trucking it, $15 for 3,000 feet. Hard to believe. Per shiplap.
Yeah.
And good stuff, too.
And good stuff, too.
Well, how many years did you work for Mayo, Bill?
Oh, I worked 24 to 30, and then from 33 to about 42, I guess.
In Mayo, he was quite generous. He gave the hospital sheets and pillowcases and
Well, he gave
all the
it to-
fruit, didn't
yeah.
he? He bought the fruit,
He
all
had
the fruit for
a-
the hospital?
Yeah, well, he went to Victoria. His wife had a confinement down in Victoria, and when he came back, he said he'd give that. So I said, why don't you give it to the hospital in Duncan? So he did them, too. Any fruit, when the oranges came out or when bananas come out, he'd go and buy them and send them to the hospital, St. Joseph's and Carlton District Hospital.
That was a sawmill at Wheatley Siding, wasn't it?
Pardon?
That was the sawmill, Hillcrest sawmill at Wheatley Siding.
Yeah, Saddle.
Yeah, Wheatley
Yes.
Siding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hillcrest started at Fairbridge,
Yeah.
1912 to 1917.
That's right.
Yeah.
And here's the post office, the old post office, and the mail sorters inside.
Bucky Kenneth was one, I guess.
Yeah, Bucky Kennett was one. Mr. Corney,
Corney.
Puppy
Jim.
Ryle. He was
Yeah,
he was a good old guy. He always used to get excited at times, though.
Mr. Collins
Mhm.
and David Ford. He
David
was
Ford.
Yeah, he was
he
the-
was a
postmaster.
Postmaster.
Yeah. And then Collins took over from him.
Didn't the Collinses live in the apartments upstairs?
Yes, I think they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
an Indian department upstairs, too.
And the customs.
Customs,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Brittingham was up there.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Indian office was up. Indian agent was upstairs too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fred Lomas. He wasn't always upstairs, though.
No.
And here's the Castley girls here. That's after they're all grown up.
Oh, that was at the reunion.
Yeah, and
There's
this is
their home.
this is the house. This is the Castley house on the corner of Craig Street and Ingram Street, and this is where the first telephone office was operated out of.
Yeah, right in that two windows and
That's right.
gable there.
But it must have been a sad affair for her to and she must have had some tough times being left like that.
She
And
got
he was-
$30 a month.
I'm talking about the good old days and the odd funny thing I can remember when Fred Price here worked for Ted Robson, and I can remember Walker and a Haneke had a logging outfit and they had trucking, and I can remember a fellow by the name of Tiny that used to haul logs for them. And
Yeah.
Walker, one of the owners of of the logging outfit, he would scale the logs, and Tiny would mark the figures down, and he would put more scale on it in those days, and Walker caught him at it. So he said, well, you get up and scale it, and I'll mark the figures down. So when Tiny got up on the load, he scaled the logs larger than what they were, so it was broad as it was long.
Yes, those were days, all right. The Dudley Seymour's was his name.
Oh, yeah.
Came from South Spring Island.
Yeah.
And one of the many truckers there, your brother used to run the winch there
That's
to
right, load the trailers.
To load the trailers.
That's right.
And that was in right opposite to Al Anderson's blacksmith shop.
Melba's
Melba's
dad's
husband.
blacksmith shop. But I can always
And then
remember.
when they started to change there, Imperial Oil decided they were going to pull down that building. And so I got an office over in Critchley's harness shop, which is a
Next
little
door.
place next door,
Yeah.
for a while there.
I can remember Dad, when we, as kids, wanted something welded, he'd say, well, come back when I got the torch going. He says, then I'll only charge you a dime. And he used to shoe all our horses.
Yeah.
And I think what's $2.50 for a set of 4.
I haven't any idea what he charged.
Yeah, $2.50 I think it was for
I
a
used
set
to
of
ride
4.
around with him when he'd go to the farms and shoe horses.
Oh.
Yeah.
But just like the fishery, somebody was mentioning, and they at one time when you walked up the Cowichan River in the fall, you couldn't. You had to be careful where you're watching for the spawned out salmon.
Oh yeah.
Lots of fish in those
everywhere there.
Yeah.
Used to come and spawn right up into the city creeks over there on First Street.
Well, and also at the corner of Trunk Road and what is now the highway, there used to be a slough went there into Henderson's place,
Oh, yeah.
the Limes,
Yes, into the lime.
and later on was Talbot's store was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's
But you used to be able to get, well, there was a bridge there and you got right through and the fish crawled up there.
I can
I
remember when I was at Juneau Bay, you just had to plow your way through fish to get to Cowichan Bay.
that's right.
Okay.
In the fall.
And it was just boiling, just jumping there, you think the water was boiling.
Yeah.
Huh.
Now, if anybody sees one fish
I don't think you would.
No.
No.
But I can always remember on the farm, in the 30s, we had a fellow that used to come and steal 2 quarts of milk once or twice a week. And it wasn't the milk in those days. I mean, nobody had any locks on their doors. And it wasn't the milk that my dad was worried about. We had lots of milk. But he was interested to see who was stealing the milk. So they thought they'd lay for him. So once he took turns with my uncle, and they slept in the barn for this guy to show up. They always brought the bottles back clean. They were always clean. Always brought the bottles back. So anyway, after about 3 nights, my uncle was in the barn and heard the dairy door slam, and out he went. And he had a World War I revolver that didn't work. And this guy seen him coming out of the barn, and he took off up which is now James Street. And they dug some post holes there, and they hadn't put any posts in it. And this guy fell in one of the post holes with my uncle on top of him. But anyway, here he was, a fellow that lived on the end of St. Julian Street, and he was getting a pint of milk a day at the time. And but he'd been stealing other things. He had ladies' clothing off the clotheslines, and you name it, he had it. Off he went to jail.
Oh.
My dad wasn't too concerned about the milk. All he wanted to know who was stealing it.
Bob, you're going to have to excuse me because I have to go.
Yeah, okay,
And thanks very much.
we're finished. So we all hope that you enjoyed this little program that we put together for you, and take you back in what some people think is a good old days, and some people didn't think it was too good. So we hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you.